couple of detours here. So here's the problem, and we're going to go forward and backwards at the same time, because these two pay-per-views are going to be where the backstage stuff is by far more important than what's actually happening in the ring. Okay, we'll get to like WCW and we'll get to WWF in those situations. But this is really kind of like a WWF, because it was such a brand name. You still had Hogan, you still had something to move it forward. Whereas WCW was swimming in place there. And because they didn't really have, I mean, they had some stars, but they didn't know what to do with them. This is how you run a promotion into the ground. So within the last 7 to 10 days, AEW had this situation where, well, actually, pretty much for the last year and a half, where the backstage stuff has become way more important than what's actually happening in the ring. And Tony Khan got all his panties in an uproar, whatever, because, USA made a funny joke about him, basing everything on cage match ratings. And then he went off into this thing about, Hook has this record and Jinder Mahal shouldn't be getting a title shot. And it was just this whole big mess, including with Eric Bischoff and all of these people. And Jinder Mahal, who had the best reply, and I was like, who the fuck is Hook? Like, I mean, honestly, like, it didn't make any sense that Tony Khan, the CEO, Booker, whatever this is for AEW, took a kayfabe 28 and a work 28-1 record to try to put Hook over in a match with Samoa Joe, and it didn't make any sense. And again, for the last since all Brawl Out, the most impactful things that are happening in AEW are happening backstage. The in-ring product is secondary, which is what was happening to WCW and a little bit with WWF at the time. Like, do you see where I'm going with this, especially for WCW at this point?
I mean, like, we didn't have the insight into any of that. Like, we have to read about historical accounts of all this nonsense. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, like, this situation is ridiculous. It's like you're citing all these records, but it's a work, dude. Like, there's that's
Yeah.
not the argument that
It's
you got
not
to be.
real.
But by the same token, like, the stupidity of it probably drew more attention to both of those matches that no one really cared about.
Right.
The Jinder Mahal match is with Seth Rollins, I guess, and with Hook and Samoa Joe. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like the product in AEW is just so, like, it's just matches, and
Mm-hmm.
90% of the time you know what's happening, and the presentation is not great. And I mean, I can only listen and read about it anymore. I can't sit there and watch it
It's very difficult to watch anymore because, again, it feels like we're repeating Cornette stuff here. There are no stars. Like, there's nobody that's like, and especially with MJF out, there's really no stars. I mean,
anymore.
Samoa Joe is a star, if you like Samoa Joe. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it's so weird that 25, well, from here, 30 some odd years later, we're seeing kind of the same thing. Whereas the in-ring product is not great, but it's not the worst thing. But
Yeah.
the things that are happening behind the scenes are way more interesting than what's happening on the television. And this is how you ruin a promotion. It's the same thing that winds up happening when we get to Nitro era before Vince buys it. Like, all of this things going on with Russo and who's going to buy the promotion and Hogan not wanting to do a job, and like all of that stuff became way more important. That was what was happening in the ring. And that's how you kill a promotion. And I'm not saying Tony Khan is killing AEW, but he ain't helping it. And nobody learns from history, I think. Is the problem here, and especially with wrestling, because I think it's so cyclical, and you have this opportunity to be this alternate promotion to the WWEF, and you're just blowing it because
I mean,
you wanted.
it of anyone even remotely affiliated with this podcast, you and I have watched by far more AEW than anybody
You know
else.
that's right. Correct.
I have by far given them more money than anyone else on this podcast, and and
Yes.
I am 100% out at this point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a rough sled, man. Like at this point, like I'm a DVR watcher. I'm like, well, I heard that wasn't as terrible as anything else, so I'll go to that part, and then I can't watch any of the rest of it.
mm-mm.
You know what I mean?
Like
Like it's just
if you like, so it sounds again like Daniel Garcia is the project. So if you want to see Daniel Garcia's rise to fame and
yeah.
watch him go over everyone he like comes within 10 feet of,
Yeah.
you should watch the
Yeah.
shit out of AEW for about the
Yeah.
next 6 weeks, and then
Mm,
somebody else will be have a rocket strapped to him. So
yeah.
or he'll get
Yeah.
hurt,
Or Orange Cassidy.
or he'll get
Yeah.
hurt, and somebody else will get a
Yeah.
rocket strapped to him.
Yeah. It just and well, again, we could do 12 hours on this to be honest with you, but I want to tie that all together. As we move forward with this.
You're really trying
Because
to not watch these pay-per-views, aren't
yeah, I am. Because oh yeah, we'll get to that in a minute too. Because this is what's happening in WCW and WWF right now. Flair is out, y'all. He's gone. There's a contract dispute, arguments with Jim Herd. Whether it be what Spartacus
you?
cut his hair, put on an earring or whatever. All these really bad ideas. And Flair was on the booking committee. He quits the booking committee. He's just like, look, I'm here. And then eventually, he's like, I've had enough. And he's gonna job him out at the end. And he has the big gold belt. Supposed to pay that $25,000 deposit to have the belt. WCW didn't want to pay it to him, and so he leaves with the belt and soon to appear on WWF television with that belt before they digitize it out. Now, again, hello, kids. Like, this was a big deal. This is
Yeah.
summer of whatever. Like, I remember seeing that. What was that ridiculous show they had? Like,
Was it
Bobby Heenan
the Saturday
came
show
out
or
with the
whatever?
belt. Yeah, it was something like
Or
that.
was
Like, they
it
had like
like the
a
Monday talk show, the variety show?
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah, something like that. And and Heenan comes out with the belt, and he's like, I'm gonna bring out the real world champion. Like, I remember that crap,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah.
yo, that's
What is
crazy.
happening? Yeah.
Like, how does this work? So, so there was that, and then in WWF, which we weren't watching for sure, Ultimate Warrior is going to wind up being out here soon too. He tries to hold up Vince for more money. Before SummerSlam, he wants, I think it's like $500,000. Like money he felt that he had earned from the previous pay-per-view. And Vince's motto is get the match in the ring. And so he's like, yo, okay, we'll take care of that, as soon as this is over. And as soon as he walks through the curtain, he fires him. Well,
Did
I
you
think
see
it's
the
an
story that
indefinite suspension.
Did you see the story that Hogan and Slaughter allegedly offered to take care of it? Like they
No, but
yeah, there was a threat of violence. It's unclear if that's a Hogan story or what, but yeah.
yeah. Any Hogan story would probably be a Hogan story at this point with what we
Yeah.
know. But yeah, so he gets suspended indefinitely and he's out for a while. Then there's all the lawsuits that's going back and forth, and then I think he winds up coming back for a little bit there. And then he fails a drug test for after Vince's shenanigans with the government and his steroids. I think the drug test, and then he fails the drug test, and then that was it. And then he's out of there for until I think early in the Monday Night Wars, and he winds up on WCW. Then he does all
Mhm.
the form, and then he dies the next day. So I
He
mean, it's like
yes, he
it's
goes
like
to
this.
WCW, Hogan gets his win back, then he
Yes.
goes gets the Hall of Fame and dies.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a full circle
Oh,
moment.
there's racist nonsense, racist,
Yeah.
misogynist, homophobic nonsense.
Homophobic. Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah,
Under the
MAGA-esque,
guise of Christianity.
MAGA-esque
Yeah.
inspirational speeches. Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck the warrior too. But yeah, so that's where we are. So this backstage stuff, way more important, maybe more so in WCW than in WWF, but definitely probably a little bit more than what these two pay-per-views are known for. Flair not being there and then Warrior getting shit canned is probably
Mhm.
more so important than actually what happens in the ring, because the matches